Welcome back at WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We've turned the corner. The new website is live. It has all sorts of new stuff, old stuff, political stuff, education stuff, health stuff, and, of course, sports stuff, which brings us to this matchup. We've been seeing these guys twice a year, every year, and I think the only thing that would keep Dave Lapham away from Baltimore would be a plague. It would not be the crab cakes or the chili that he would be bringing my way. Dave, welcome in, man. You're a frequent flyer around here, and all the years we did WNST in sports and all the things we would have thought that there would have been a 6-month shutdown where there were no sports, and there was a question as to whether all this would happen. Been a strange, strange time for young people like us, right?
No question about it. I mean, 2020, you think 2020, you think 2020 vision. Everything's crystal clear. The year 2020, man, all it is just hazy and blurry, man. There's no clear path to anything. We're learning as we go on a day-to-day basis here. It's a crazy time.
Well, then we get to football, right? Like, I didn't have a whole lot of oxygen for football when I'm seeing businesses going out of business down the street back in April and in May and in June. And, the Terps, there was no March Madness. There was no lacrosse season. There was no opening day. All those things that sort of, the Preakness, mark time in our city. Give me a little primer for, life in the Bengals camp, because second-year coach, quarterback, some controversy there. Nobody can touch anybody. I would think it's been even more difficult. I think the Ravens have had an incredible advantage just being together as a football organization, where other places where, Marvin's not there anymore and Dalton's not there anymore and, sort of leadership changes, I think it's even harder for franchises.
I agree with you. I think franchises that have had, a head coach around for a number of years, and particularly, a head coach and a quarterback together for a number of years, like Tom Brady, obviously going with a new head coach, that makes it a little bit more difficult. But like down in New Orleans, head coach and quarterback together for all those years, I mean, their mentality down there was, I don't care what they say. If if they say that we're allowed to have OTAs and mini camps, we're not going to do it. We'll see you at training camp. We're not going to do that. Whereas organizations like this one, where they had changes in the coaching staff from year one to year two, bringing a brand new quarterback, indoctrinating a new offense, bunch of signees and free agency, the draft. I mean, there was a lot of newness there. And you're right. I mean, I think that it's taken a while. I do think they're probably through the preseason phase of it now. It probably took a couple of weeks to get through that, but Joe Burrow honestly has done an amazing job, considering the fact that he's been put in the circumstances that he's been put in as a rookie quarterback. And A.J. Green wasn't able to really have any reps with him at training camp. There's no real relationship going on there. The relationship that's really developed is Tyler Boyd and Joe Burrow, though. They work together through training camp, and they've got a little bit of a connection going.
Well, run me through, what happened for that organization, and certainly sitting on the pick, thinking you got the quarterback. I'm sure teams were calling and whatnot, whether you really fall in love with the quarterback or whether you fall in love with the concept of the quarterback and whether he's the right guy to lead your organization. And, all those typical things that you've been through with the Brown family, where you want the number one pick to fall in love with Cincinnati and be there, and whatever, Carson Palmer when things were good, or Dalton when things were good, or Ken Anderson back when things were good. But just getting to know the city, all those things you want to do to market, now all that's sort of gone away with ticket sales and all the other things that you would want to get that kind of momentum. And more than anything, for me, I'll take him over the kid in Northern Ohio right now. Like, as far as long-term, 10 years from now, whether I believe more in Joe Burrow than I do Baker Mayfield, I think you got the better player. We're 4 weeks into this thing. Even seeing it in the beginning phases, I would think y'all should be heartened by where you are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think they feel like the arrow is pointing up with Joe Burrow, leading the team at the quarterback position. He's one of these guys that just has the it factor. I think he's a mature rookie, played 5 years. He had a redshirt year. At training camp, he was older than 18 players that were on the roster in training camp as a rookie. So he's had the highs and lows. Things didn't go real well for him in the early stages of his career with Ohio State. He transfers to LSU. He gets an opportunity, and 2 years started down there. The second year, obviously, wins the Heisman and has an undefeated national championship season, one of the best, if not the best season any college football player has had, any quarterback has had. And he really has He has a brilliant football mind, a beautiful football mind as such. You know, if there was a quarterback school as such that guys could go to, he would have graduated from the gifted and talented quarterback school. He's one of those guys that just sees it, understands it, makes quick decisions. So they're very happy with him. And he's already broken some records. I mean, three straight 300 yards or more passing games hasn't happened since 1950. So he's putting up numbers that are pretty interesting, and he's got total grasp of the offense. They took some of the things from LSU that he liked and they incorporated it into their schematic a little bit. And he sits down with the coordinator and head coach Zach Taylor on Saturday nights in every situation, situation in situational football that you can imagine. They're asking him what his top 3 plays are in terms of things that he prefers. And he'll give them, you know, his preferences, and they'll go through theirs, and they'll come to a commonality on it. And so he's pretty advanced. He really is. He understands the game, no doubt about it.
Dave Lapham is here. He joins me a couple times a year. We get together. I mean, a playoff game. We would have wished for more of those between us and the Marvins during those years. But now that you guys are sort of trying to put it together, and then you come here and see what this organization represents, I always ask the outsiders how they feel about the Ravens and what they see, because week to week, you know, the Kansas City game last week, eye-opening for how good they are and where Lamar is and whether this team could come back. But then trying to put together your 53 and get him on a plane and bring him in and try to beat this guy and chase him down. I mean, that play last year was the play of the year, right? You know, running, I guess, from right to left where we were sitting up in the press area in Cincinnati, and I don't think I've ever seen a football play like that. And you even played in the USFL.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think that play will be shown for the next quarter of a century over and over and over again. I mean, it's just a dynamic play. It says everything you need to know about Lamar Jackson. I mean, when you're in high school, even at the collegiate level, every once in a while you'll find a quarterback that might be the best athlete out on the field, you know, in terms of raw speed and all that. But in the NFL, it's becoming more and more the case now. But I mean, back in the day, you know, Johnny Unitas, and he was no athlete. He could just throw the football. These guys were statues. Today's quarterback, they all have to have some moving skill. Joe Burrow has a little bit more quick twitch than you realize. He's made a lot of people miss in space and created an extended placement. Nothing like Lamar Jackson. He is unbelievable. And, you know, you feel like Baltimore is so contrarian because everybody's spreading the field, spreading people out. Baltimore, you got to put your big boy pads on. Everything's going to be between the hash marks, between the numbers, multiple tight ends, could be a fullback, you know, with it, obviously. And they're just going to beat you up. They're just going to pound you, ground and pound you. And Jackson's the leading rusher on the football team. And that's a dynamic that when the best athlete on the field is at the quarterback position, that's a little bit of a rarity. Now you're playing 11-on-11 football instead of 10-on-11. Usually quarterbacks hand off and watch the action. This guy is the action. So there's some interesting things to prepare for there for sure defensively. And then when you look at the other side of it, this division, the AFC North, honestly, the Bengals could be 3-1 themselves. They should have beaten the Chargers. They lose that game in overtime. They had a touchdown taken off the board, and then Randy Bullock cramps up and misses a 31-yard field goal that would have won the football game. And so, you know, you look at those things and shake your head. In Philadelphia, they tie. They could have and should have won that football game. If that's the case, and they tied Cleveland, lost to Cleveland, rightfully so. But the entire division could be 3-1. AFC North. I mean, I think it's the toughest division in football. And Pittsburgh and Baltimore blitz over 50% of the time. So Baltimore's whole MO, if I'm a player, I'm thinking, man, get ready for some physicality. The way they run their offense, the way they bring it on defense. Baltimore is all about just hitting you right in the mouth. And if you wipe it off, they're going to hit you right again and see if they can make you bleed a little bit more, man.
Dave, you played a long time in the league, and I had Marshall Yonda, you remember last year, just seeing the smile on his face week after week at that point in his career to be in this running offense that's constantly in 2nd and 2 and 2nd and 1 and 1st and 10, a lot of 1st and 10s, and just moving the ball up and down the field after a lot of years of struggles in various ways with Joe Flacco and other quarterbacks and coaches and schemes and running backs. I would think it's a little different. Who was the best guy that ever carried the ball for you? You mean you blocked for Herschel Walker? You blocked for some great bats, but when you know the geometry, if I could just hold a block 1 second, it can be a touchdown. No matter where we are on the field, that you have that sort of an explosive thing. We had it with Jamal Lewis here for a little while. Ray Rice was that guy. But when you have it with the guy with the ball in his hands every play and the running back doesn't know whether he's getting the ball, I would think for the offensive lineman, every time you put the chin strap on, you're not just trying to get 3 yards in a cloud of dust. You're trying to just get an angle to just give him 1 second to worm his way through there and shake a linebacker, and off he goes.
Yeah, I mean, you hit on one of my favorite all-time favorites, the big man from Iowa, 8-time Pro Bowler. I mean, he and Geno Atkins had some stirring battles. I'm going to miss seeing him up front for the Baltimore Ravens. But you're right. I mean, Lamar Jackson. The other thing about Lamar Jackson is he's really good with the ball handling. I mean, sometimes safeties, even linebackers, I've heard speak about, man, I don't know who has the football. I mean, he is really good.
Dave, I talked to Eric Weddle last year, okay? So I had never been to the L.A. Memorial Coliseum, ever. You probably played there a couple times back in the day. And I had never walked in there, and it's the last time, they're opening the new thing. Ravens play Monday Night Football. They got those goofy purple jerseys on. Weddle looked like mustard, you know what I mean, with a blue helmet on. And we just beat their ass, right? I mean, it was 45-6. It was up and down the field. You remember it. I mean, I know you scouted the tape when we played you later. And there's that tunnel, that one little tunnel that leads Adam, L.A. Moore. And we're standing up there. There's no media area. It's out concrete. And Weddle is literally standing out there in his cleats and his jersey talking to me and Jamison Hensley and Jeff Zrebeck from the Sun. And he said, I practiced against that for a year, and all week long we practice, and then you get back there in real time and you have no idea who has the ball. You literally, the minute it happens, you have no idea who has the ball. And he said you can't see that until you're on the field, and then you get embarrassed, And that's a guy, Eric Weddle is there's no more beautiful football mind in a defense than Eric Weddle. He couldn't see the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's prestidigitation, man. I mean, it's sleight of hand. He has unbelievable ball handling skills to go with all that suddenness, explosiveness, and guys carry out their fakes so well. I mean, that's a big part of the offense. They've got it going. There's no question about it. Greg Roman has done an unbelievable job, taking the talent and creating something to accentuate that talent. I have a lot of respect for what he's done. And I think, honestly, even though it gives you it has, I think, really good offenses have the perception of all of this going on, but in reality, it's very simple. And I think he keeps it very simple for Jackson. I don't think he complicates it very much at all. There's a lot of window dressing, a lot of things going on, but I think he keeps it very simple, and they get great results. There's no question about it.
Dave Lapham, the longtime insider and one of the voices of Bengals football, doing color commentary alongside Dan Horde. You can find them both out at Baltimore Positive, previewing the Cincinnati Bengals as we go out and, I look up and down, you drop these names, the Mixons and the Boyds and the Greens and the Gio Bernards and the Atkins and Dunlop. Some of these guys we recognize, but then there's just so many new names, including all the coaches, quarterback. What has changed fundamentally after Marvin that this team is now building from, other than just having a special quarterback, which I'm in agreement. I think he's a special quarterback.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned some of the quarterbacks that the franchise has had. It's one of the only franchises that's had 4 different quarterbacks, going back to Kenny Anderson, Boomer Esiason, Carson Palmer, Andy Dalton, that had 98 starts or more. So once they'll select a quarterback, designate him as the guy, the franchise guy, and then, build around him. And that's when they had some successful runs. When they didn't have that going on, there was a merry-go-round of quarterback, and it was awful results. There's no question about it. So I think that they're going to try to build a franchise around Joe Burrow. And you mentioned some of the skill players. I think they've got skill players that can win football games. Offensive line is an area that needs work. But I'll tell you what, Nestor, around the league, in my mind, and Baltimore has one of them, there's only 8 to 10 offensive lines that I'd say pretty damn good. 20 to 22 offensive lines suck. I mean, offensive line play in the National Football League is terrible. It
Well,
really
you're
is.
trying to pay your left tackle, get by with 2 or 3 other fifth-round draft picks, and hope that you have a veteran somewhere at center, whatever. It's not a place where teams spend their money, right? It's just not.
No, it's not. I mean, the ones that do, get pretty good results out of it. You got a couple of Pro Bowl caliber, one in the Pro Bowl caliber up on the other at the bookend at the offensive tackle position. That's a really good starting point, But I mean, I just think that defensive lines in the NFL over the last 6 years have advanced from a talent standpoint and taking care of their bodies and whatever else so much more than the offensive lines over the last 5-6 years. The offensive lines have just not kept up with the athleticism. And you never were.
Well, it's not even the athleticism on the front. It's the whole defense, right, where you're playing nickel in a situation. I mean, defense is all very situational in that way, putting the right players on the field, right?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. And you're always going to – the better athlete is going to be the defensive lineman. That's why he's playing defensive line. And it's brutal because that's a better athlete. He's going forward. You're going backward. You can use your hands a little bit. But that's about it. So but I just think that the spread between the athleticism between the offensive and defensive linemen in the last 5-6 years has widened. And I think it's becoming problematic. Plus, I don't think in college they don't teach a technique worth a hill of beans. I mean, they never get in 3-point stances anymore. Everybody's in a 2-point stance. If you just get your hands on a guy one time in college football, that's a good pass protection. You put your hands on him and barely reroute him. I mean, it's so much different. They're coming into the league, I think, not ready to handle what they're going to be facing in the National Football League in terms of technique that they've operated with in college and gotten by with because they were much better athletes in college, but not in the NFL. And it's offensive line play as a whole. I watch a lot of offensive lines around the league, and it's like, man, it's not real good, not real good.
Well, over the course of years, as your offensive line sort of went away and aged, the Whitworth era and all that, we had sort of a similar thing here. You're talking about Marshall Yanda, where we had 3 years where every year we lost a top-of-market guy. I mean, Ricky Wagner went out to Detroit. He got paid. Kelechi Osemele, he got paid. And then Ryan Jensen went down to Tampa. He got paid. And, damn if they just didn't go back to the draft and draft Ronnie Stanley and, get Zeus's kid to play the right side. They, Skura coached him up. But more than that, now they have to pay players again, right? Like, they're coming off 14-2, and the disappointment, they gave the money to Marlon Humphrey. Where is the investment? Will they spend that kind of money on Ronnie Stanley? Do you spend that kind of money on a center? One of the reasons we got Matt Burke is that Minnesota sort of undervalued him, right? And, we wind up getting this Hall of Fame caliber guy that can really work with a quarterback. I've often thought that center is the most underappreciated position on the field and underpaid because when we've had good centers around here, we've had good football teams.
Yeah, I mean, the center's the quarterback of the offensive line. He's the one that you mentioned all the sub packages that go on nickel, dime defenses and everything else. He's the one that has to set the middle linebacker and, call protections, determine everybody's assignments based on his call. He has to understand not only his assignment, but the entire offensive line's assignment and understand the concept of what they're trying to accomplish, the schematic of how they're trying to go about it. I mean, he has to have some football IQ. There's no doubt. Very important position. And, I don't know. I worry about some of these quarterbacks because, man, they better be athletes. They better be able to make people miss because, I mean, I'll see 3 techniques, and I've seen it in Bengals games, unfortunately. 3 technique outside shoulder to guard looks like a free runner. I mean, he's barely slowed down right in the middle of the pocket. I mean, quarterbacks, the one thing any quarterback hates is pressure right in his face. And if your center and guard's not keeping the depth of the pocket, if the tackles keep the width, that's fine. But if the quarterback can't step up, there's no depth of the pocket for him to step up into, and there are pressures in his face right away. Can't see the field, panics. I mean, it's a bad situation, and I don't know, man. It's to me.
Well, I mean, around here they're trying to turn Lamar a little bit. They want him to pass a little bit more, and when he does pass, they would like him to set, right? And I don't even know if it's natural for him to do that. And, he's judged upon the passing side of things because the feeling is he can't run forever, but they haven't built the line to do that. Literally, they built the line to road grade. That's they built this thing to run behind 3 running backs and a quarterback who's better than any of them.
Yeah, and the one thing, though, passing the football. I mean, a big part of the Bengals passing game was hopefully to off of play action. Now, in the early stages of the season, Bengals not able to establish that running game like Baltimore has. Defensive linemen aren't paying any attention to the run fake. They're just teeing off. I mean, they're not even stopping on the way to see if it's a run. They're just teeing off to the quarterback. So in Baltimore, a good run fake, man, that freezes linebackers. That affects safeties. That affects everybody. You can run the ball to the extent that the Baltimore Ravens do. You can have a pretty good play action game off of that. And then pass protection's easy because you're going through basically run blocking type scenarios instead of just dropping back and letting guys just sprint, tee off on you. That's the most brutal pass protection thing to have to face. 3rd and 7 or more, a good part of the game where guys, these great athletes, a lot better than you are, just teeing off on you. That's a no-win proposition. So against Jacksonville, a big part of the win, Bengals ran the ball for over 200 yards. Joe Mixon had 151, third best rushing game in the league this year. And once that running game was established, they put the ball in his belly and take it out of there. Man, linebackers are stepping toward the line of scrimmage. Safeties are getting nosy, and now you get areas to throw the football. That was a big deal in that game.
Well, Dave, one of the things we've talked about here is the offensive line and how do you improve on what they did last year? How do you improve on Lamar's touchdown ratio? I mean, they were 14-2. They set records. He's the league MVP. They laid an egg against a surging Titans team, and they're part of history for that. Now there's this year where Marshall Yanda's not there, and the tight end they liked the most, they dealt off who was catching passes the other night for the Falcons, right? And Hayden Hurst. Yeah, I want a comment from you on the Kansas City game because we spent a short week last week getting ready for the Washington football team, and that's more of a regional thing than it is how good they are. They're more drama than they are football, right? But the aftermath of Kansas City is that when the Ravens get down by 10 points or 13 points, early, late, whenever, and they have to behave like a normal football team. Drop back, set, have wide receivers go out, have tight ends go across the middle, find 5 or 6 seconds, throw the ball down, behave in that way where you're in 2 minutes, you need to get out of bounds, running the ball's a mistake because you don't have timeouts and you can't get out of bounds. Like all of those things that would happen with the clock, they don't get activated when you're 14-2, right? They don't get activated when you're winning 45-6, beating the snot out of the Rams or beating the snot out of the Dolphins or the Bengals or anybody else. They only get activated when you're down 13 points. And now you're left-handed. Now your road graders have to pass block, and it's late, and they're getting leaned on the way you're talking about. They haven't been leaned on all week, year at all because you haven't really tried to pass the ball in a traditional way, and your quarterback can take off. You want your quarterback to take off, literally. That's what the whole thing is schemed for. But you can't do that anymore. Now you're down 2 touchdowns. They have never in this era come back like that. And I don't know if it's this week or next week against Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or whether it's a playoff game or whether it's a Super Bowl. I don't know. But they're going to have to come back. And when you have to come back, you have to play differently. And to your point, being one of those guys on the offensive line who knows about having to, pass block down 21 points in every play, you're just hoping to put the ball up in the air for a Hail Mary. If they have to play that way, they're going to have a hard time to win. And we've seen that in the losses, that coming back's an issue. And it might be because they're not structured to play 2 minutes and pass the ball down the field. They're structured to be up by 14 points and decide whether they want to give the ball to Ingram, Dobbins, or Gus Edwards, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this offense is built to play with a lead. It's not built to play from behind. There's no question about it. It's interesting. Last week, Gardner Minshew against the Bengals, he had 107 pass attempts in his first 3 games. He had not thrown one of them with a lead, had never thrown a pass with a lead. They've been outscored 35-7 in the first quarter. So they're always playing from behind. But he's they're throwing the football, trying to catch back up and get back in games. So he had like 104 passes when they were behind, and 3 passes when the game was tied. Had not thrown a ball all year long with them in the lead. So it's kind of the reverse of what you're talking about, and it's hard to get a running game going.
I saw the '96 Ravens, so you don't have to tell me. I mean, Marvin still got nightmares. I had Vinny on back in January. We're losing 35-13. It's halftime. I guess we're going to throw the ball.
It is. That's obviously what every team's goal is to do against the Baltimore Ravens, is to play with a lead and and try to grow the lead and make them have to throw the football, because obviously that's making them play left-handed. You know, that's the Bill Belichick mindset of take away, you know, the team's strength and make them play more toward their lesser strength as such. And I think most teams would probably, you know, roll the dice that they could defend Jackson, you know, in the pocket, or even if they get him out of pocket, you know, and get him change the launch point around a little bit. They'd much rather do that than try to face that 3-4-headed monster they have in the running game. And I'll tell you, you know, the tight ends block. I mean, Greg Roman's he's done a phenomenal job. He really has. I mean, he has enough misdirection where linebackers are like, man, I don't trust my eyes anymore. My eyes are telling me one thing, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's really the situation. I don't know if I should make that read or not. That's when you got linebackers on their heels and you have problems. They've done a phenomenal job. I think we talked about this before. I don't know if there's another franchise in the NFL that has taken their talent and devised an offense around their talent as well or better than Baltimore, rather than the other way around. Some people like, here's our offense. We're going to try to stick this guy in here, even if it's not. We're going to make it work. You know, it's good. We'll you know, try to stick that round peg in a square hole, you know, or square peg in a round hole, whichever way, and try to make it work the other way. Baltimore they haven't done that. They've done a great job of creating things around the strengths of their football players. I tip my cap to that coaching staff. I think they've done a great job.
We also have to worry about the Steelers, though, right? I mean, you know, you never go to sleep on them. Now we flipped this bye week because of the Titans and COVID and all that's going on here. But last year, you know, Roethlisberger's on the sidelines. He's got his beard. He looks all fat like a lineman. Looks like he's eating too much pudding, you know. Looks all paunchy and old, you know. And then, like, 2 weeks ago, he's, like, playing on the red zone. My wife's like, Roethlisberger looks 10 years younger.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, we've just seen this so many times, and you talk about organizations and the way they're run and what you guys are trying to measure up against, and the Browns and where the Ravens are and where the Steelers have been. Boy, just dealing with the Steelers. I mean, you can trash talk them in the offseason, but you don't do it in October.
Telling you, you know, to me, when the AFC North has been at its best, it's been kind of like the black and blue division. You know, it's just the physical. I mean, you come out of games on Sunday, you need Wednesday to recover. You know, you're not – Thursday night football is a bear if it's going to be after an AFC North matchup when all the teams are playing at a high level. And, yeah, I mean, to me, the Pittsburgh Steelers have such a great tradition and history. And as a result of that, the culture that they've got there, you know, and culture is a big word. Marvin built a hell of a culture in Cincinnati. You know, when Marvin was here, they went to the playoffs 5 straight years. That's a franchise record. And he was all about culture. And a Ravens culture has to be extraordinary, you know. And I think, you know, you have a good culture when the players realize that they have to take control of things and, you know, not wait for coaches to discipline them or do whatever. When the locker room decides we're going to make this happen, that's what Marvin was talking about, trying to get done in Cincinnati. He finally got there for a few years when the players basically said, look, we'll look to the coaches for guidance. We're not going to look for them to, you know, take care of every problem, discipline every guy. We're going to self-police. We're going to get that done ourselves. And you get some leaders, and you get not just a leader or two. You have a leader at every single position group, maybe 2 leaders at every single position group. You know, they have that type of mindset. Then you have something cooking. And I know Baltimore's had that for a while. I get a lot of respect for John Harbaugh and, you know, and the culture that he's built there. It's phenomenal.
Well, I figured if there's a place they can try to keep it clean during the era of a plague, you know, the culture would be everything. We talked to Dick Cass about that last week at Baltimore Positive, and you know, obviously in the aftermath of the Titans and even Cam Newton the other day and what's going on with games. I do have a flight out to the Queen City later in the year. I know you're letting fans in your state. By the way, I show my ballot anytime anybody from Ohio's on. I don't know if you live in Kentucky or Ohio, but Ohio, vote, you people. Fix this country. Okay, so that's my little Ohio statement because I have to do that in Ohio. But I hope I get out there, you know, later in the year, and you guys are better than advertised, right? This isn't going to be a 2-14 for the Cincinnati Bengals.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think that you know that. Sorry about that. In terms of
get old school. It's a flip phone. That's like Maxwell Smart.
No, it's even cooler than a flip phone. It's
I love you, Dave Lapham. You know that.
I still have a home line. How about that? I still have 3 extensions in my
Hey,
house.
hey. Every other time I call you on this. I'm old school, Lapham. You know, I don't even put it into the shot, but it's here, you know.
Yeah, I tell you, not traveling. We had a Thursday night game. Doing a Thursday night game in that stadium in the radio booth. We were the only people there. It was pitch black. It was so quiet. You could hear crickets. You know, they put a big, like, 80-inch TV screen, you know, where we usually sit. They stuck it up down there. We're back a row. It was the weirdest thing, man. It was almost like I was waiting for Rod Sterling to show up. It's like Twilight Zone. It was nuts. And, man, it's such a different year. And it's hard calling it off the TV monitor. You know, my job's to look at everything else. I don't follow the ball. And all the networks want to do is follow the football. I want to try to look at everything else, and it'll take me back to the ball and find out who did what and who didn't do what. So I did get an all 22. They get me an all 22, which helps immeasurably. But it's a different year. It's a different animal for sure.
You know, I had Dick Cass on last week, and we have one credential at the games as WNST, right? So Luke, who covers the team, is doing the home games, and I'm doing the road games. So I flew down to Houston, surreal. I drove down to Raljon the other day, surreal. I was home before 5 o'clock. Crazy. It's never happened at a home game because I didn't go in the locker room. I zoomed in the car driving home. It's 36 miles from here to FedEx Field. I was home at 4:52. My wife's like, the game was in Washington. I'm like, I couldn't go in the locker room. I watched the post game here. If I had a question, I hit the button. I could say something to John. So
Right.
we are in a different universe at this point. But sitting at these games when they're empty, I went just because I want to doc. I hope that there aren't many of them. You know, I hope that I can count them on a hand, and I'll write about them for my grandkids or whatever. But
Right.
you know, I would just say in this era, Joe Burrow doesn't have my wife screaming at him in the upper deck. You know, Lamar didn't have that happening in Houston. Patrick Mahomes didn't have that here. It's a different game, and watching games on TV. And Dave, how many Bengals games have you missed in 35 years? I mean, like 0? You've never missed a game, or 1 or 2 maybe?
I was doing some network games, missed a few network games here and there. I did some games with NBC, did some games with Fox, but yeah, I mean, this is my 35th year in the radio booth and 10 years as a player, so 45th year overall.
So you've never sat home on a Sunday and watched your team on TV play a football game. That hasn't happened in your long. Same with me, other than I've missed 7 games in 24 years. 4 of them where my wife had cancer. I missed a couple of end of the years. I don't watch the Ravens on TV. I'm always there. You know that, right?
Right.
So week 1, I'm like, well, it's a plague. Kevin Byrne retired. I'm not going to pull the "Do you know who I am" card. We should have 2 passes. I'm not going to do that during a plague. I'm going to sit with my cat and watch the game. And I didn't hate it. It was okay. It was the Browns. It was fine. Then I went to Houston, and I saw everything I missed. And then I had to come home and watch the Kansas City game on TV. And I like exactly what you said is what I said to Dick Cass, and I said this to some people. I said, if you're watching the game on TV, you're not watching the game, you're watching the ball. And that's not the game, because if you can't see the secondary, you're not watching the game, you're only watching the ball. So I'm adjusting to it just as a guy on Twitter to wonder what's going on. Luke's at the game, whatever. It's a plague. I'm just happy they're playing, right? And that you're alive and I'm alive and we'll eat chili and crab cakes again. But so much of this has changed, and just the way fans are now getting it, I'm wondering if fans are ever going to go back and pay $500 to sit in Dan Snyder's stadium down there and eat crappy food. You know, I'm wondering where the value of all of this. Preakness numbers were through the floor. Nobody even wanted to watch it. Nobody knew it ran. You know, there's so much going on with the plague that I'm worried about sports, because the TV presentation's great because people love it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I know one thing. I wish I had invested in Zoom, because Zoom's worth more than GM right now. Zoom's up like 578%. It's crazy. I mean, and the league is using it. Companies are using it. I would not want to be a commercial realtor that's selling office space, because there's going to be so much square footage of office space that they're going to say, forget it. We're not going to spend that. Stay at home. It's working. We'll Zoom. We'll do this. We'll do that. It's out of every crisis, the necessity, the mother of invention, and sometimes things come out of crises like this that you find, hey, that even works better. I wonder, how many people will be traveling in traveling parties to road games anymore? How many people will be going to football games anymore? You're right. There's a lot of things that are going to change. Even this crisis is, people have determined that, well, this really works. Why should I spend all that money to do this? Why should I spend all that money to do that? So it's a different dynamic. There's no question about it. No question about it.
I know they're never going to let me back in the locker room, Dave. I've touched my last football player, other than ex-football players like you. I appreciate you coming by and visiting. I wish we were spending some time together and having some chili and talking through things, but I'm glad we can visit. I told your partner, Dan, and everybody that John Feinstein last week and all the DC guys, the Kansas City crew, who I hope – when they beat us, I'm like, well, if nobody's going to be at the game, at least I get to go to Kansas City and have barbecue in January if that's the way it's going to be. But it is nice to see people. There has been a part of the humanity of the Zoom thing that I'm looking at you now, and I wouldn't have been had there not been a plague. So good on us, right?
Good on us for sure. And I'll tell you, man, I miss the Inner Harbor. I miss the crab. I miss the crab cakes. I miss the crab legs, man. And I miss you, bro.
Well,
I'm serious. These trips there's nothing better than going to a good NFL city. There's nothing better.
Well, next year we'll do that, and we'll appreciate it even more once we get together and fist bump. Take care. Don't beat us on Sunday. I tell everybody in Cincinnati, don't do that, all right?
We'll give it a shot, see what happens. Maybe we'll shock the world, Dester.
We got plans on going to the Super Bowl, but not going and having a parade that we can't attend. That's what come on, we got plans around here, Dave. Take care of yourself. Be good, okay?
Have a great one, sir.
Dave Lapham, one of the good ones. He's been doing Bengals games so long that I've lost the math on that. I don't think I can count that high. Long time and a great visitor. So a shame we can't get out to the Queen City. One day he and I will go find Crosley Field together somewhere in Cincinnati. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live everywhere, including Baltimore Positive.